Hi, I'm Drill Sergeant Vintage. Today I'm going to be instructing you on how to treat a casualty with a tension pneumothorax. I'm also going to be teaching you about what type of medical supplies you're going to need to treat a tension pneumothorax, what the classic signs and symptoms of a tension pneumothorax are, and also how to use these medical supplies to save your casualty's life. Okay, let's talk about what a tension pneumothorax actually is. Well, tension means pressure, pneumo means the lungs, and thorax means the torso of the body. Now, it's also known as a sucking chest wound, which from the sucking sound in the chest and the wound. Now, I'll get into signs and symptoms later. So, let's say the casualty is shot in the chest, and one of his lungs is lacerated. Now, what would happen, you think of you blowing up a balloon with a hole in it. Now what happens to the air when you blow up the balloon? It simply escapes out of the balloon. Now, well, the same thing happens to the lung, but with the lung there's a chest cavity. So what happens is the air escaping out of the lung creates an abundance or surplus of air within the chest cavity. And then each time the lung gets smaller and smaller and smaller, which it collapses the lung. It could lead to traumatic arrest. Okay, so how am I going to know when I walk up on a casualty at the battlefield that this casualty has a tension pneumothorax or a sucking chest wound? Well, there's several signs and symptoms of a sucking chest wound, but here are some of them. Okay, so you'll have trachea deviation, which basically means the trachea or the windpipe throat will be moved to one side or another. This being caused by the offset of one lung being normal, healthy, inflated, still working properly, and one being fully collapsed. So there'll be trachea deviation. There'll be veins bulging from the neck because of the trachea deviation. There'll be a sucking and wheezing sound coming from the casualty. And there will be short, choppy breaths. They're obviously going to be running at 50% of their oxygen capacity. There's also going to be the one side will be lower than the other. One side will be rising normally, everything like that. The other side won't. Okay, so here's another view of the supplies that we're going to need. I'll go ahead and elaborate on them now. This is 2-inch wide medical tape, just 3M medical tape. You can usually find this anywhere around your company area, and if you don't have any, get with your supply sergeant. Now, here's an emergency bandage with the inside wrapper. Now, you might say, hey, wait a second, why do I need an emergency bandage? I thought I was treating a tension pneumothorax. And you say, well, we're not really using the emergency bandage. We're going to use this wrapper, the inside of the wrapper, that is. That's still sterile in there. And with that coupled with this medical tape, we're going to tape on all 4 sides of this wrapper and create a hasty occlusive bandage, because the plastic obviously is airtight. Okay, so here is a squared away, manufactured, actually occlusive bandage. As you can see, it expires pretty soon. So, it has very simple instructions on it. Remove it from the wrapper, wipe around, clean up the area, because you might have some dirt on the area and everything like that, because in combat everything gets dirty. Okay, using the tab on the corner down here, you can kind of see it. You just pull the backing off the bandage, and then you smoothly apply it just like a sticker on a car. Okay, now, this is your needle. As you can see, it is a monster. And nobody wants this thing being stabbed in your chest. But, you know, after you've been shot in the chest already, and this is the only thing that's going to let the air escape out of your chest cavity, you might be thinking differently afterwards. And you're actually not going to have this thing in your chest very long. The catheter, which is this tan or beige part of the needle, will actually be remaining. Now, what's commonly confused with this, because of the size, is this is a easily retractable 1.75-inch 14-gauge needle. Now it's the right diameter, but the length is not correct. As you can see, 14-gauge, 1.75. Here we have 14-gauge 3.25. Okay, so this is a much longer needle than this. Okay, so we've learned what a tension pneumothorax is, what are some of the signs and symptoms of a tension pneumothorax, and what medical supplies we're going to need for the tension pneumothorax. So the last thing that we can do is learn how to use these medical supplies to treat the tension pneumothorax. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use this emergency pressure dressing or emergency bandage. I'm going to use the wrapper of it to create a hasty or improvised occlusive dressing. And then I'm going to use the bona fide one. Okay, so let's move this extra. I'm also going to elaborate on the needle. Let's use the let's move this extra stuff out of the way. All right, so when the first thing, you confirm that this person has a sucking chest wound. Okay, he's bleeding out here. He's got the wheezing. He's got the tracheal deviation. Okay, so another thing that what should be obvious is exposing the wound. Okay, but it's one thing you really don't want to forget. Okay, so let's expose the wound for demonstration purposes only. I'm just gonna have it unbuttoned already. Okay, so as you can see on the emergency pressure drain, it has these tabs right here. Okay. Simply rip the tabs open. Now, if you're not careful, you'll simply rip this in half because it's not necessarily designed for this purpose, but we're going to use it for this purpose anyways. This will also be assisted with the trauma shears that most aid bags have, if not your medical have. Okay, so we remove the bandage, discard the bandage for another day. Hopefully not. And just like you're trying to open up a Ziploc bag, we open up the wrapper to the occlusive dressing. Now you want to make sure that you use the side that was the inside. You want to use that one. And also, when you do this, let's see, you can see that this mannequin has some dirt and stuff already. So in combat, it's going to be nasty. Okay, so you're going to want to clean everything off. All right, so and from there for obviously, infections, and also you just want the tape to stick. Alright, so the first thing you're going to do here, get your tape, rip quite a bit off, okay, because you need 4 strips. You can estimate. Now again, you're going to tape on all 4 sides here, okay, and a hasty or improvised bandage, it'll work, but it's not going to look pretty. That's okay, because we don't need to be pretty, we just need to save the guy's life. So again, we tape on all 4 sides, making sure we're not missing anything. There's this long one right here. Okay, all across there. Now if there's other wounds, you're obviously going to have to work around the other wounds. Okay, so there we go. Now all 4 sides are taped, so there should not be any air entering this chest cavity through this entry wound here. There shouldn't be any. Okay, now so we have the hole. We have the one-way valve sealed. That's what we have. Okay, so next thing. Okay, so let's remove this. All right, we can discard this now since we're going to. I'll show you how to use the H&H. Okay, so here we are. Again, we have the same entry wound. Now this is the way that, the valve that's making the lung collapse. Okay, the lacerated lungs in the middle. As you can see, there's 2 different tabs here. Okay, and they're highlighted with being black plastic. Okay, so we'll get this one closest. Rip it open. Okay, now we can just discard the bandage. Now this is a sterile piece here. Okay, it's going to shrunk wrap in there. Okay, so I remember my directions because I've trained before. I'm going to unroll the bandage. Okay. Okay, I'm going to place the gauze pad on the casualty over the chest wound, so if there is any blood, it's going to suck it up. And again, this is sterile. I'm going to look for this pull tab area right here. Okay, simply pull it off. Now this is extremely sticky surface, so you have to be careful. And I'll simply cover the wound. Again, I'm reading the directions, depressing it nice and slow. Okay. Now I'm going to take the rest of this and peel it off. So we have a nice seal here. As you can see, this is airtight. Alright, now the next thing, you have to find the midclavicular line, which is basically on a male, you have the nipple, okay, and you're going to go straight up towards the clavicle or the collarbone, and from there you'll find the midclavicular line. All right, now then from there you have to find your target area, which is on the midclavicular line and in between the second and third intercostal space. Okay, so what you have here is your second ICS. Okay, you're going to simply put 3 fingers down on the right on the clavicle. Okay, so you imagine a line going up from the second MCS and right where your finger is. Okay, so now we can use our 3.25 inch 14 gauge needle. Okay, so this is obviously, it's still going to be in the packaging and everything. You rip the packaging open, making sure it comes kind of out like a toothbrush. Okay, you take, now there's a protective cap and then another protective cap. Now what you're going to do here is you're going to push the needle into your target area on the second ICS again. That's the second intercostal space in between the second and third rib, and on the midclavicular line. Okay, so we have our area. I see it. Okay, and I'm going to push it in all the way to the hilt where the catheter enters right here. And as soon as we do that, then we're going to pull the catheter out. As you can see, the catheter comes off just like this. Very simple. Okay, so here we go. I'll move the casualty a little bit. Alright, so again, second ICS, midclavicular line. Very sharp needle, very large needle. Alright, all the way to the hilt. Get the cap off. Remove the needle. Discard the needle. Okay, now from here, we want to stable, because if this comes out, we're going to have to do the whole thing over again with the needle. So we don't want that coming out, because if it comes out, it's going to close up with mucus and phlegm and bile, everything else that's going on in there. So we want to tape it on all 4 sides. Okay, with this, you can, okay, we'll just do it like this. Now, nice, and you want everything to be nice and pretty and laid out, because if it's not going to stick right. Alright, so tape it. You can also do an X. An X works too, but this works too. Okay. Now again, this is just a piece of rubber. You can see how loose it is. Okay, so you don't want this coming out. Alright, so it's taped down. It's not coming out unless someone pulls it out. Okay, so again, to treat a sucking chest wound, we have to use our occlusive dressing. Now we can either use a manufacturer occlusive dressing like this one, this H&H, or we can use a, here we are, a hasty occlusive dressing, which works just the same, but it's just not as pretty and not as quick. Okay, then we also need our 3.2 inch needle, again, monstrosity. With our catheter, we pierce the casualty's chest cavity in between the second and third ICS along the midclavicular line, then tape down the catheter so it doesn't come out. From here we're going to set the casualty up, and he's going to put pressure on the wound if the casualty can, and if not, we can put the casualty in the recovery position and evacuate the casualty.